NBA owners, led by the Thunder's Clay Bennett, have reportedly asked the league to consider ways to include all 30 teams in a restarted season. However, the league does appear to be moving forward with a 22-team plan. Let's get a closer look at that with our Adrian Wojnarowski and Jalen Rose with us this morning here, and we'll talk about a bunch of stuff. And Woj, let's start with that. You've been saying all along that all 30 teams are not going to come back, but what are some of the concerns of particularly the small market owners who it does not appear will get the chance to come back?
You know, Greeny, I think the short-term concerns are for many, as the league returns to Orlando, there are teams who want to feel a part of the National Basketball Association. They don't want to be left out in the short term. They want to go play. The longer term, the idea of your season ending in March and not starting again, playing another NBA game until likely late December, that big of a gap really worries organizations, especially those rebuilding with young players who they can't have around their facilities. They can't have their hands touching these young players. And financially, you know, in some of these marketplaces, like in Atlanta or in Detroit, where you want to stay in the consciousness of your market, you got to be able to sell tickets. You've got to be able to sell sponsorships. You know, I think there's business and basketball concerns about disappearing for this long.
And that's understandable. None of us should pretend the business side of this isn't going to be first and foremost in people's minds. Jalen, let me ask you as a player, if you were on one of those teams, if you were Steph Curry, for example, he's the perfect example because he's a superstar and he's on a team that is hopelessly out of it, would you want to come back and play?
So I want to do a distinction, and it all is about time. So if the goal is to complete the regular season as much as possible, now remember, players and obviously teams have taken a pay cut so far already. But if the goal is to get as many regular season games in as possible, I'm all for saving the integrity of the regular season. You know how much that means to me, Greeny. I hate when people dismiss the regular season. So if that's the case and the reason, I would expect each team that gets called upon, including a Steph Curry and Golden State, to actually go and participate. If the goal is just to go down there and kind of be a punching bag for the other teams that are getting ready for the postseason, and you're the Golden State Warriors, you've already won 3 championships, and to you, you won this year because you got yourself back in the lottery, you don't want to affect going into next season by now all of a sudden getting Steph Curry injured. So you don't want to put him out there. But if you're the Hawks and you have Trae Young, you actually do want him out there because it's something that he can build on, and your franchise doesn't have the history, the recent history and success of the Golden State Warriors. So all situations aren't created equal.
So one way or another, Woj, all this is going to come down to a vote from the Board of Governors Thursday. Yes? What are we expecting here?
The Board of Governors are going to pass whatever the plan is that Adam Silver and the Players Association bring them. They have zeroed in on a 22-team format, likely the 16 teams that are in the playoff, 1 through 8 in both conferences right now, and then 6 more teams, likely 5 in the Western Conference, 1 in the East, Washington. And still the details of what that's going to look like is going to be presented to the owners, what the structure and format is. But they're ready to get behind Adam Silver, approve a return to play, and head to Orlando sometime in July to move towards starting to play games there.
Sound good to you, Jalen? You good with this?
I'm very good with it, Greeny, and it's basically a version of what we discussed. And as I look deeper into some of these teams that may or may not be 7 or 8 seed or below, let me tell you some of the guys that play on those Western Conference teams. You notice Woj said 4 from the West and 1 from the East. So Luka, Ja Morant, Dame Lillard, Zion Williamson, and then in the East, you may get John Wall back to play with Bradley Beal. That's some interesting big-name talent that the NBA can put on display once they get back to playing basketball.
And if everyone will just indulge me, one moment of personal discussion with my friend, Mr. Rose. If the Pelicans make it to the playoffs, Jalen, you know you owe me that suit. I don't. The circumstances are the circumstances. This goes in my favor.
That's crazy. They gonna get in as a 22nd team, and I'm gonna lose my bet.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.